Vicki, any announcements you have before I start the opening prayer?
No, Bishop Doug, go right ahead.
So I'm taking this prayer from the baptism rite because we are all baptized, and this is what was prayed for us when we were baptized. Heavenly Father, we thank you that by water and the Holy Spirit, you have bestowed upon these your servants the forgiveness of sin and raised them to the new life of grace. Sustain them, O Lord, in your Holy Spirit. Give them an inquiring and a discerning heart, the courage to will and to persevere, the spirit to know and to love you, and the gift of joy and wonder in all your works. Amen. So again, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for taking this time, and more than that, thank you so much for taking on the responsibilities of being vestry. That is such an important job in our church, and so meaningful, and it's so great that you have offered your wisdom and your generosity and your time. And just as I said in that prayer, that from the prayer book at our baptism, you have inquiring and discerning hearts. You have the courage to will and to persevere. You have a spirit to know and to love you, and the gift of joy and wonder in all your works. I hope you experience all that as leaders in our church. And in thanking you for taking this on, I also just want to acknowledge the wisdom that's in the room. You know, we come to this important job in the church, but you bring vast experience from your life. And as in your vestries, you're going to have to make small decisions about details. But a lot of times you're going to have to make big decisions too. And the fact is that you're used to making big decisions. You know, you made decisions about relationships, about jobs, about where to move. You made decisions about taking care of children and taking care of your own parents. You just have a vast amount of experience of life that you bring to this work. And I invite you to draw on that experience. Sometimes we look at church as different than the rest of life, but it's not. It's engaged with the rest of life. And so I just encourage you to bring all the wisdom that you've acquired through the years, all the insights you've gained, all the prayers that you've said, and bring them to this work so that the church might glorify the living God with your leadership. So thank you for this. And now I'm going to turn it to Rich after we have done that part. Then we're going to bring up this next one right here. It's going to be fun.
All right. Is that my cue, Bishop?
It's good to you, Rich. Go for it.
This was here both to give me a cue to get started, and I want to also welcome you all here and also acknowledge there's a lot of wisdom in the room. I put this here for a cheap laugh, although you're all muted, so I couldn't hear you all laughing. But we put this here because I thought it was funny, but I also put it here to make a much more serious point. I think that there's sometimes is a kind of desperation that comes over clergy and wardens sometimes about the middle of January, when there are slots that have not been filled, nominated to the vestry, and people say things like, oh, it's easy. It's just one meeting a month, and we don't even meet in the summertime. Wouldn't it be great if you serve on vestry? And I think we do a disservice when we do that. I know it can be hard sometimes to find people, but I think we have to be honest and truthful about what the work of vestry is. And that's part of what we want to talk about tonight. So I think that we would do better to tell, first of all, I think we should follow term limits, because I think one of the things that scares people about getting on vestry is they think they're joining the Supreme Court and they can't get off until they die. And so if we really honor the fact that we are asking people to loan their gifts for a season, but that it takes work. If you tell people, let us nominate you to serve on vestry, it'll be fun, and then the next week the rector announces that she or he is retiring, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So I think it's important to be just really clear about what vestry is, and hopefully we'll do some of that tonight. Okay, I want to talk a little bit first about adaptive and technical work. And some of you, I think, know this language. Some of you may know this language better than I do. I use it a lot. And I use it sometimes assuming people know what it means. But some of you may not know exactly what it means. But I think with vestries, we have to get clear on what it is we're doing at any given moment in a meeting. Technical work is fairly straightforward and has a solution, right? It might be the boiler goes down, and who has to make a decision about a new boiler and finding the money for it? It's the vestry, right? But there's only so many boilers out there, or maybe you're going to do solar panels now, or maybe you're going to do natural gas, but you still have there's a technical answer. It's a problem that the engineers can solve pretty quickly. Adaptive challenges are really, really different from that. Our neighborhood has changed and we're not sure what our mission is anymore. We don't know the people in our neighborhood. Adaptive challenges are complex and they don't have simple answers. So my sense is that thank you, Vicky, that's right on time. We didn't even rehearse this, but you've got it. That I want to say that vestries do both. Some vestries are more inspired toward adaptive work, but then they've got buckets in the narthex with dripping water because they can't seem to get around to getting the roof fixed. And other places are always dealing with property issues and those kinds of technical challenges, but they never seem to get to the why questions, the bigger questions, the adaptive questions. So I don't have an answer for what the sweet spot is, but I encourage vestries, especially this time of year. We just had annual meetings last month. We're relatively new to vestries. Take some time to say, how are we doing the work that we're doing? And what is the work we're doing? If it's all adaptive or all technical, you're probably not in the sweet spot. What's our preference? What do we do better? What do we have to work harder at? Who do we need to raise up voices on to get to that other work? So I'm really asking questions now. We're going to have time for some conversation at the end, but I just invite you to think about what's the work that's on your agenda. And if month after month it's all technical, or month after month it's sort of intractable, really difficult stuff, that's probably not the sweet spot. The bishop and canons meet every week, and we have a thing on our agenda called the next big thing, right? That's adaptive work. We take some time, we front load it, we put it in there, but we also have 27 things that we need to get to, and those tend to be more task oriented. All right, we're going to see a video, and then I'm going to make a comment or two, but I think the video is just fun. And hopefully you can all hear it.
I'll be fine. I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight, you'll be fine.
Okay.
Same thing you do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20. Go ahead. I got it. Fine. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Here. I go. Yeah. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now.
So I hope you all heard that. Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of anxiety at the top for that little girl. She's never done this. She's practiced other smaller ones, but this is the first time on this particular jump. I'm not a skier, by the way, but it scares the heck out of me looking at that. But I've been in vestry meetings, and maybe some of you have too, that are filled with anxiety, and that we talk more about what we might do someday, and we have the same meeting again and again, like Groundhog Day. We let our fear paralyze us, and I think that's part of what's going on in that moment for her. She's well coached. The coach, her dad, I assume, is giving her good advice, helping her to know what it is she's facing, not lying to her, not telling her it's going to be easy, just the facts, giving her the information she needs to make this jump. And there's joy at the end of it. And that's what the caption here says on top, right? That adaptive work, when we get unstuck, can bring joy in our ministries. I worry about meeting after meeting where we never make the jump, where we never take the risk. And I think it's a time, and not just post, whatever post-pandemic, wherever the heck we are with the pandemic, but not just now in 2023. I think always in the church, we've been tempted to be cautious. And I think we really have to find ways to take calculated risks, find courage that will bring us joy. And I just invite you to remember that little girl and remember that jump, and that doing that having meetings that come to that kind of joy gets you ready for the next one. She can't wait to do the bigger one now because she's built her confidence by doing this one. So I think that's a practice, and I think it's a practice of faith. When I served in Holden, my job now, as many of you know, maybe all of you know, is working as the bishop's canon, is that I'm in different vestry meetings literally every week. I think I was in 7 vestry meetings in February. When the bishop asked me to do this job, he didn't tell me I'd be going to 7 times more vestry meetings than I was going to as a parish priest. But I love those. But the difference is I'm more of a guest when I come into those. When I was in Holden, I would say over 15 years, we had maybe 3 or 4 big giant decisions. We renovated the church and did a capital campaign. I mean, there were some big things that we had to go through over that time. But most months, they're just regular meetings. I mean, you're just doing business. Sometimes it's a lot of technical stuff. But how do we practice so that we all have enough trust, that we have enough faith in God, that we have enough faith in each other, that we have enough faith in ourselves, that when the big stuff comes, we're ready for it. And so I invite you just to remember this little girl and her ski jump when you're at a vestry meeting that's stuck up at the top, and to say, okay, it's time to jump. It's time to go. And we don't have all the answers. We don't have all the information. We never will. We have enough information to be able to do this thing now. Okay. The other thing that I wanted to make sure people know tonight, some of you may already know this, and for some of you, this may be new, but there's a website from the Episcopal Church, the Episcopal Church Foundation, and there's a whole bunch of vestry resources. And I think that thank you, Vicky, there's the link, and please don't click on it now, because we're doing this work now, but I have it on my phone here, and I just want to tell you. So there's actually, if you go there, there's a Linda Grentz, who used to be in this diocese and then was the canon to the ordinary in Rhode Island, wrote a thing on commissioning lay leaders, vestry members. There's actually something on here called Vestry 101, and that's about encouraging hearts and souls. And you can just go, young leaders in ministry, stewardship in a new world, beyond the pews, caretakers of God's creation. There's a whole lot of resources here. And I worry that most vestries don't know that these are here. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe everybody here knows that, but I would invite you to check it out personally. But also, if you're the the priest or the senior warden in one of these congregations that you serve, sometimes just giving people some things short like these, they're not long, to read and then have some time for discussion, and gives a chance. Yeah, we'll make sure everybody gets the link, right? Vicky, we'll send something out after, or these slides, so everybody will have this. But even if you didn't, it's Episcopal Church Foundation and Transforming Ministry. You'll definitely be able to find it. It's amazing what's there, and it's really good stuff. Really good stuff. So just to know that, because we have an hour tonight, all we're doing is sort of clicking off some things, but you could get lost on this website and spend hours and hours becoming the most super vestry person in the diocese. So know that it's there. One of the things that I do, this is a funny slide, Vicky. I was like, okay, there we are. But I've done it in Ashfield as well. And one of the vestry meetings, most recently, I was in Northampton at St. John's, and mutual ministry reviews. I'll be in East Long Meadow soon enough. We do these in a couple ways that are, if you've ever applied for a ministry development grant, you'll notice it's a requirement to do this. And I always know the people who have gotten a little bit out of practice when they say, what is a mutual ministry review? We've never done one of those in the last 10 years or so. It's like, okay, there's no shame about that. But what I want to encourage people to do, so when there's new clergy called, we build into the letters of agreement that we'll do one about 6 months to 9 months in. And I always say it's kind of a well visit. It's just checking in, see how things are going. It's not always a well visit. Sometimes some things get revealed there, but mostly that's what it is. It's a chance to check in and see how things are going. But also, really, these should be done annually, even if you're not applying for a ministry development grant, because it's a chance. It's not, Mary Rosendale helps me do these. So she does some, I do some. If you've done it with me a couple times, it's good to go with Mary. If you've done it with Mary a couple times, it's good to go with me. But it's separate from the normal business meeting, and it's a chance, and it's also different from doing a vestry retreat, which I know a lot of you do. This is a chance just to spend a little time reflecting on what's going well and where the challenges are. And the priest in the congregation doesn't have to lead you through that. He or she gets to participate in that because either I or Mary are leading you through that. So it's a really helpful thing. I think sometimes people get nervous. I think sometimes people think it's an evaluation of the clergy. It is not. Those first two words go together. It's about mutual ministry, the goals that the parish has set, and it's a chance to reflect on where you are, review. If I were to change the name, I would want to say, and we also talk about next steps. So we're not just reviewing what's happened, but we're looking ahead to say what comes next. And I think it's just a really important tool that if you haven't done an MMR in your congregation for a few years, give me a holler, or give Mary Rosendale a holler, and let's set that up so we have a chance to talk. Okay, I mentioned adaptive and technical change, and I want to just name some technical things that really help vestry meetings get unstuck in my experience. And you may have a longer list than I do, but I'll just go through these with some very brief comments. And I was just checking my time. I think we're good on time. So honor people's time. And that means start on time, and it means stay on task. And no shame here, and nobody needs to raise their hands, but as I mentioned, I was at 7 vestry meetings in February. I get out to a lot of vestry meetings. I'm amazed how many vestry meetings do not start on time. And it's 10 minutes after the hour, 12 minutes after the hour, but we're waiting on Shirley to get there or Fred to get there, and they're always late, so don't worry, we're not going to start. You notice we started this meeting on time. I think that's really important, to honor people's time, and start on time, and to stay on task, and then end on time. That's sometimes ending on time is harder, but starting on time should not be hard. Every vestry meeting should have some prayer and study and reflection. And again, because I get to a lot, sometimes I can tell if they say, will you pray? Because so I don't always wear a collar. I have a collar on now, but they know I'm a priest. And especially if I'm in a parish where the priest has just retired or taken a new parish, I think it's really important to share this work And we used to in Holden just go around at the first meeting and set up a rotation and say, so Jane would do the February meeting and Charlie would do the March meeting and so on and so forth, and bring a reflection. We do that at our staff meeting at Diocesan House at 37. We share that work. Everybody can pray. Not everybody's as comfortable as each other, but if you know it in advance, you can find something. So I encourage you to begin with prayer, some kind of reflection and study. You can go back and find stuff on ECF, the website we shared, so that there's a chance at the front to do some conversation and invite God into the conversation and not just jump into the treasurer's report, as important as that may be. I will admit to you that as a rector 10 years ago, I don't think I had heard of a consent agenda, or if I had, it had gone completely over my head. But I am a big convert to a consent agenda, and we use this on council, and a lot of our vestries are using it now. And all it means is the stuff that everybody agrees on, the minutes, the treasurer's report, there might be other things in there. It can be moved off of that if it needs conversation. It's not a way to truncate conversation. But if there's things that are just sort of automatic, they can be sent out in advance and people can say, can we adapt the consent agenda and do that with one vote? It saves a lot of time from technical stuff. I wish I had $1 for every vestry meeting that I've been in, both as canon and as a rector, where somebody said, excuse me, but the rector's travel expense on line 37, it looks like they took one extra trip to the diocese this week and we spent $4.17 on this. Nonsense. I mean, that's either passive aggressive or it's, it's not helpful to get into that kind of detail. So the consent agenda allows people, they can do questions by email, but we've all learned how to do to use technology in this way, so that the vestry meeting is about the stuff that affects everybody, not about one line item on the treasurer's report or some other report. I know I'm covering a lot of ground fast, but we will have time, as I said, to talk, and the bishop will have one more thing and then we'll talk. So bear with me, I'm almost there. This is a relatively new learning for me, but I realize that it's not common knowledge, and so I wanted to say it tonight. Again, my experience as a rector, I met with the wardens, sometimes the whole executive committee, by which I mean the wardens, the treasurer, the clerk, but we met a full week, usually longer than that, before vestry meetings, and we set the agenda and it went out so everybody knew what they were coming into the meeting to discuss. I'm amazed at how many agendas don't get sent out before, which means everybody's coming in blind. I'm amazed that sometimes, because it's last minute, the clergy are setting the agenda, or maybe it's the senior warden. But I think that should be a partnership. I think that everybody, and not that everybody sets the agenda, somebody, a smaller group sets the agenda, but everybody has it so people know what it is we're going to be discussing, and the resources for that are sent out in advance. That goes along with sort of minding the time. And I know everybody does that a little bit differently, but I think agendas that go out an hour before are not our best practice. I know sometimes it has to happen. And then I wanted to say, this relates a little bit to the adaptive work and the technical work, is sometimes there are big decisions vestries need to make. Please, 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 for the love of God and Jesus, don't put those meetings at 9:03 p.m. When you started at 7 p.m. and now we're going to discuss this and then we want to vote before we leave, right? Front load the harder stuff and give people information. So we developed a practice when I was rector in Holden of, we said if it was going to be a big decision, there's lots of little decisions. If you need a new boiler, you trust the property committee to pick the right boiler and you move on it because you need heat in the church. But on these adaptive things, to spend 1 month just giving people information, a chance to reflect and ask questions and say, we're not going to make this decision tonight. We're just going to ponder it. Then we'll pray. We'll make the decision next month. And most big decisions, if you can't make them, if you're trying to make big decisions fast, you're probably not in the best place that you need to be in terms of that. So I just think it's a good practice. And again, it's practice for when you get to the bigger stuff. So you give people the information, people can ask questions, but people make decisions at such different speeds. And I learned this firsthand again. I've known it for a long time. I'm sitting in my living room in Worcester tonight. My wife and I just went through a major renovation. We are completely opposite Myers-Briggs types, and we make decisions incredibly differently. We have to honor that at the vestry table too. So if somebody says, we're going to take out the pews and we're going to renovate the church, you can't do that in one meeting. You really need to give people time. On the other hand, if you have 3 years of that same damn meeting, it's like the little girl at the top of it, right? I mean, at some point you have to say, okay, we've reflected, we've prayed, we're going to make a decision at our next meeting. So don't get stuck spinning and having a groundhog meeting again and again and again. So this is also something new that I had not thought about much until the last 10 years in getting around to a lot of vestries. But I think there's some vestries that for a long time, the culture has been a rubber stamp. We do what the rector asks us to do, and we're pretty passive about it. The opposite also happens. No matter what the rector asks for, we are going to be difficult and boisterous and not agree. And we're going to, but more often I see this, a bit of passivity that we need to unlearn, I think, as a church. The bishop talked earlier about bringing our best selves, and I agree with that 100%, 100%. But it's also, I think, important to say we're not a not-for-profit board of directors. I think sometimes people's experience in the world is in not-for-profits. They sit on boards and then they think that that's what a vestry is. I would submit to you that vestry leadership is about servant leadership. It's about being a follower of Jesus in community. And yes, bring our best selves. And yes, if we were on a board of directors somewhere else, there's definitely best practices we've learned. But servant leadership is that we are all in this together and everybody has a voice. You're elected to vestry to serve, and it's not a rubber stamp, and it's not something where we use power over each other. We listen to each other. The other thing that has sometimes surprised me, we had a practice, you couldn't be on vestry in Holden unless you were at least on the journey to tithing, that stewardship had to matter, that we had a stewardship covenant with people. And sometimes I hear this, I've seen it firsthand, where a vestry member will say, well, I'm not going to pledge this year because I don't like what's going on right now. You don't get to do that on vestry. Everybody gets a say at vestry, you vote, but when you vote, you move forward. And to not use money as power over one another. And to really say, my favorite story from my years in Holden was around the time that Bishop Robinson was consecrated as bishop in New Hampshire. I had a guy who was very against that. Some people left St. Francis and went to other places at the time. Our pledges dropped. And I had this guy say to me, I'm going to increase my pledge. I don't even agree with this, but I love this church and I'm going to continue to support this church because it matters to me. And I think we need to tell those stories about people who you don't have to always get your way or use money as a power thing to be able to support the ministry of to get the bigger picture. If vestry doesn't do that, the people in the pews aren't going to be able to do that. And then I think this is my last one, but I'll see if Vicki had, yeah, she's nodding, yes, good. So I've been trying to do this when I go to those vestry meetings. I'm sometime about 50-50, I'd say, but I try to remind people, I usually ask for a show of hands. Do you get the mailings? Do you get the stuff that comes out from the diocese? Did you know about Vestry 101 happening? And 9 times out of 10, if somebody isn't on the mailing list, it's because the parish has not gotten their report into who's been elected, right? If you're newer to vestry, and sometimes now they're all coming in at once. So you may have sent it in, but it may be a lag of a week or two before we get caught up. But if you're not getting mailings, or if you accidentally, one day you were feeling grumpy and you got 27 mailings from the diocese and you decided to unsubscribe, what you've just done is unsubscribe from all of them. And now you're not getting anything. So it's really important that people understand. Some people say, well, I never heard about that. If you're not in our database as a vestry member, you're not going to hear about the things that go to vestry. Same thing with wardens and so forth. There's also, and this has come up a lot lately, and so I added it here, clergy, because of the way they file taxes, and we do not have to do a tax seminar tonight, and nobody on vestry really needs to understand it. It's between the cleric and the IRS. but clergy have a weird, similar to the military, housing allowance thing. And if they live in a rectory, it's usually a lower amount, but there still are expenses for housing. If we live in our own homes, then it's a bigger amount, but that needs to be passed by vestry. And after that resolution is passed, the clerk or the treasurer or the senior warden need to get in touch with our office, with Susan Olbon, who I know is here tonight, to make sure we know that. Otherwise, the W-2, the tax stuff all gets messed up, and it's much harder to fix it when it's a mess. So just know that that's always on your agenda in December when you're passing the budget, that you need to do that. And then the registering convention is just to remind you, it's not to make our lives easier, but just to remember that something like tonight wasn't a registration. Anybody could show up, and a lot of you have. But things like convention, there's always this, often it's the same parishes that are late, right? So to try to not be on that list, we love everybody in the diocese very, very much, all children of God, but it makes life harder if vestries aren't on top of that kind of stuff. Somebody in the church isn't on top of that stuff to make sure that you're communicating with Diocesan House so that we can do our work faithfully too. And I think that's all I have to say about that, Bishop. So back to you. Doug, I think you're
sorry.
muted.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
I'm back. I just want to thank Rich for going to all those vestry meetings and for sharing his wisdom over the last 15 minutes or so. So I'm just going to do a brief reflection on leadership styles, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions. And this knowledge about leadership styles, I've gotten this from a number of different sources. So it's from people far wiser than me who have done this. And each of these, there's no one leadership style that's better than another. They're all needed. So one leadership style would be the relational, which, just for the sake of mnemonic, it's green. And that's where your primary desire in leadership is to get everyone the same information, to communicate really clearly, and to make sure everyone's on board. And what's the most important thing to you as a leader is the relationships and keeping those relationships. So an example of that from a vestry once, where I knew that they were going to have a big decision to make. And so the warden was really stressed about it, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And I said, well, you know all the people on that vestry really well. It's so tell me, who do you think would vote for it, and who do you think would vote against it? And so he said, yes, you're right. I know everybody on the vestry. We just don't have enough votes. We just don't have enough votes. And I said, well, tell me about it. Who would vote for it? Who would vote against it? So he said, we've got 11 members. 9 people would vote for it, and 2 people would vote against it. We don't have enough votes. We don't have enough votes. That's a leader that's all about the relationships, and we need that. But then there's other styles of leadership. Another one is, and we're just going to use the color yellow for this, is evidence-based. That's the person, when a decision needs to get made, says, well, give me the facts. Give me the facts. Most often, that's the treasurer. You know, tell me the numbers. Tell me what this is. It would be like if you say you want to have a capital campaign. Rich alluded to that earlier, having a capital campaign in his parish. You say, well, how much do we need to get from the capital campaign? Well, $1 million. We need $1 million. Well, the evidence-based person would say, what's the proof that we can earn, that we can gather $1 million? And that's then maybe when you bring on an outside firm who can help you to look through the numbers, to interview people, to talk to people and say, yeah, you can raise $1 million, or maybe you can only raise $500,000. But it's based on the facts. It's based on interviews. It's based on the numbers that you have. And we'll look at that in many different ways. You know, if we say, well, we're a growing church. Evidence-based leader will say, yeah, I love this church. But what's the evidence that we're growing? Or on the other hand, someone will say, well, the church is in decline. Well, what's the evidence that the church is in decline? So a leader that's evidence-based wants to know the facts, and we need people like that. Another one is blue, which is a leader who's about the big picture, or is another phrase for this is the take the mountain man or woman who's the leader. What is our goal here? What's the goal? And the only thing we really want to know about in meetings is, are we getting closer to the goal or not? So you don't have to tell me all the things that have gone on. Have we gotten closer to the goal or not? Are we getting closer to what we're saying that we're all about? I think in my role as bishop, I need to think about the big picture. What are we going towards? At the same time, I need the person who's relational, who's going to be able to tell me, is this being communicated well enough? There's a saying in baby bishop school, which I graduated a long time ago from, that says a bishop should never surprise people. That you do new things. You're always called to do new things. That's what Jesus is about. He's a new creation. We're called to do new things. But once you do them, people aren't surprised that you're doing them. And they might agree with you and they might disagree with you, but they'll say, oh yeah, that's where we've always seen it going. And that can be true for vestries as well, to have the big picture in sight, to make decisions, but when the big decisions get made, people say, well, we saw that decision coming. We know about this, even if we don't agree with it. And then a fourth one is the leader who says, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? And so I go back again to the baptismal prayer that I read earlier. Part of your job as a vestry is to take joy and wonder in all God's works, which is joy and wonder in creation. But it's also joy and wonder in the things that you're doing, to really feel that this brings joy to my life to do this work. If it's not fun, why are we doing it? And people who are leaders in this way of thinking say that's also the person who, when something new comes up, like a decision you've got to make about something you've never experienced before, and I'm sure you've all had that, we've never been in this place before. What are we going to do? And we get anxious. For this kind of leader, the person who, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? That person says, this is great. We've never been here before. This is a situation we've never faced. This is going to be fun. Let's address it. Well, we need all four of those types. And if we know that, we also don't feel threatened when someone comes at it from a different angle. Like, you're going to be on this vestry, and some people are going to come at it from green, from relational. Some are going to come at it from big picture. Some are going to come at it from evidence-based. Some are going to come at it from, it's not fun, why are we doing it? And so when we disagree, it's not, the reaction shouldn't be, well, I resent the person who's disagreeing with me. The reaction should be, oh, they're seeing it from a whole different angle, an angle that I need to understand, because I can only see it from one angle. I only see the big picture stuff. And this person is looking at the relational things. I only see evidence-based. And this person is looking at, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? So if we can understand that, if we can appreciate the fact that there's different leadership styles, none of them are better than the other. But to be able to bring all those voices into the room, and that by doing that, we always get a fuller and fuller picture of what God is calling us to do. So what I'm going to ask Vicki to do right now is to get away from the slides and to go back to the picture of all of us. But no, before we go to the questions and answers, I'm going to ask a question. So if we just go to the picture of all of us, can we do that? Can we show everybody on screen? There we are. All right. So I'm going to ask you to think about what style of leadership you are. Are you the big picture thinker? Are you the evidence-based person? Are you the relational person? If it's not fun, why are we doing it? And now some people respond to that question by saying, well, I'm all for them. And sometimes in different contexts, we do different things, right? And so that can be true. But the question that I would ask you, if you're saying I'm all 4 of them, or I'm 2 of them, I'm 3 of them, is when you're under pressure, what's the one you go to? When you're under pressure, which is the leadership style that you go to?
Bishop,
Right.
if you give me a second, I can put this out as a poll.
Okay, oh, great, wonderful, let's do that. Thanks,
I
Vicki.
just need 1 second. I'm working with one hand today. Under
Yeah.
pressure. I am. Go. Hello. Great. Okay, here we go.
Okay, you're sending the vote out. And so vote on the one that's your leadership style. Remember that blue is the big picture. Green is relational. Yellow is evidence-based. And red is, if it's not fun, why are we doing it?
Where are the red people? Come on. 30, 30, 40.
The red people are at the party.
All right, 1 more minute and then we're going to show you the results. We haven't quite got to 100% yet. 70. Okay, I think we're ready. Here we go.
So 34% blue, only 2% red. We need more red.
I know.
36% yellow and 28% green. So first of all, that's great that 3 of the 4 different styles have got big representation, because that's what you want. You want that diversity of leadership style. And it shows that we need more red people in our vestry. We need more people who are going to say, if it's not fun, why are we doing it? So recruit those people.